but it's allowing us to meet for this open house from all around the country and all around the world, which we wouldn't have been able to do otherwise. So in some ways, I'm thankful for that. I hope that we'll be able to welcome you to our campus soon, so you can meet all of us in person. I especially hope you can meet my colleague, Professor Schamiloglu, who is really a great colleague and committed to his students. I think you'll enjoy talking to him. But I'm really proud today to introduce you to this program. Well, these two programs in Eurasian Studies. These are very unique programs, and I think that this focus on Eurasian Studies at Nazarbayev University is something I truly believe is unique in the world. I think that our programs in Eurasian Studies are genuinely the best anywhere in the world. At NU, we've gathered a group of experts on this region that is really unparalleled. Again, Professor Schamiloglu is a great example of this. This is somebody with a lifetime of experience as a leader in this field. And there are others, nobody quite like him in our university, but many other scholars with a big reputation. I honestly don't believe that there's anywhere in the world, any university, any institute, any library that has so many top researchers in their fields, all with a focus on the Eurasian region. NU is special in that. I think that this program is also timely right now. Kazakhstan and its neighbors are becoming more and more important in the world's economy, politics, global security, and even global culture every day. It's evidenced everywhere, from the BRI initiatives, which were announced here at Nazarbayev University by President Xi Jinping, to the hosting of the Syrian peace talks here in Nur-Sultan. It was called Astana when those talks happened. And whether you love it or you hate it, even the rising prominence of Kazakhstan is even evident in the examples of popular culture that have chosen Kazakhstan as a setting for some not so funny jokes. That is clear evidence that people are more and more aware of Kazakhstan and Central Asia and the broader Eurasian region and are talking about it. So in the coming decades, I think it's clear this region is going to become central to so many issues: global security, heritage studies, agriculture, landscape management, climate change, migration. All of these things are the key issues for the next 20 years. Every problem in the next 20 years has a social dimension to it. And people with deep background into all those different dimensions and a familiarity with this particular region are going to be in demand, whether it's in professional work, government work and diplomacy, or as researchers in academia. So our programs are all designed to give students an in-depth understanding of their field, focusing on the research as the primary method of learning. So in our programs, we orient you to the world as knowledge producers, not simply as knowledge consumers. We're not here to teach you. We're here to help you learn, which means that you will be doing research from the beginning, and you will be developing your own insights at every turn. And we couple that, of course, with a solid foundation in the work that has come before, so you have that historic depth and a full appreciation of the disciplines that you're studying. And these are multidisciplinary programs. And then we sprinkle through it some surprises. You're going to be taking a few subjects that you might not expect, and we do that so that you're going to have a broader view, the broadest view possible when you go out into the world. Guiding you through all that is going to be your faculty members. I've already talked about our collections of scholars in the Eurasian region. I'm sure you've heard elsewhere that NU hires professors from the best institutions around the world, and it's all true. Our professors are publishing in the best journals and the best book publishing houses every day. Already this year, we have had 2 books published on the social dimensions of the COVID crisis. 2 books from our university published on a crisis that began just a few months ago already, when typically book publishing takes 3 to 5 years. That should demonstrate to you how quickly our professors here at Nazarbayev University are adapting to the things that happen in the world, and how eager publishers around the world are to share the work that's being done at this university. So when you come here and you're working with these scholars, you're going to benefit from their views. You'll be hearing from these scholars even before they're publishing their views to the rest of the academic community. You will be learning from that. And critically, our professors maintain research collaborations with the other top scholars in their fields. There are other great, excellent scholars on Eurasian studies around the world, but they're in touch with our professors. We have deep collaborations with colleagues at places like Humboldt University, especially in the doctoral program, Liverpool University, University of Wisconsin-Madison, Harvard, National University of Singapore, Higher School of Economics in Moscow, MGIMO, Oxford, list will go on and on and on. The point is that through your professors, you will be part of those same networks in one way or another. So I'm really sorry today that we can't invite you onto our campus, but rest assured, we will be here waiting when it's safe to return. I'm here right now, I live here, and it's boring without you. I want you to come back. Our facilities are simply amazing. I've been to a few universities in my life. I've been to a lot for the last 3 decades, but I've never seen universities, or very few universities, that have such comprehensive and modern facilities as Nazarbayev University. We have a large library, it's constantly refreshed, but more importantly, our library is connected with library networks throughout this region and in the USA. What that means is that you, as a student at Nazarbayev University, have access to materials from those other places, including the University of Wisconsin-Madison's library, one of the largest research libraries anywhere. Our dormitories, our sports venues, our medical center, all of our other facilities are extremely comfortable. I'm often jealous of the NU student experience. I really wish my university had been so nice. And of course, all of this is only possible because of our amazing team of support professionals, including people like Mary Wert, who you've already met today. These people are constantly working behind the scenes to help you. And in fact, they're here today, like Mary Wert and others who are here, to make all of this possible. So I do want to take this opportunity to thank you. You're a great team, and we're all lucky to have you. So once again, to our prospective students, I thank you for joining us. I hope today's events will be productive and that we will see you here on campus very soon. So, correct me.
Thank you, Dr. Pio. Professor Uli, I think we can start.
Okay, Dan, very nice. Okay, so hi everybody. My name is Uli Schamiloglu, and I am going to structure my presentation about half an hour. First, talking about disciplinarity and interdisciplinarity and what it means. And then in the time I have remaining, I will give you a quick overview. If I have more time, I'll give you a longer overview. If I have less time, I'll give you a shorter overview of the requirements of the PhD program. I have a PowerPoint that I keep updating, and I'll skip through parts of it and I'll linger on parts of it. So I think, so thank you for your kind words, Dan. And let's see, do I want to share my screen? Let me start just so I'm ready. Okay, there we go. And can I do this? Yeah. Whoa. Oh no, what's going on? I see what happened. Oh my God, there's a voiceover on that. I have to eliminate all of the, you know what I did? I had I know what I did. Okay, I'm sorry. You're going to see me dealing with this. So, okay. So what happened was an earlier version of this I had recorded as a lecture, and it was shown in August. And this has voicing on it, but I'm not going to deal with that right now. So do you still see my screen? Merwet, do you still see my screen? Dan, do people still see my screen?
Yes, Professor.
Okay, good. Okay, fine. So I'm not going to go to presentation mode because in order to do that, I need to first delete all of my recordings. And I know what happens when you try to do things in front of an audience. You make a fool of yourself. So let me start by saying that what I would like to do is introduce the concept of disciplinarity and interdisciplinarity from the perspective of U.S. graduate education. I did my own undergraduate and graduate work at Columbia College and Columbia University. I taught and worked with graduate students at the university, Indiana University, Bloomington, what's now the Department of Central Eurasian Studies from 1983 until 1989. And from 1989 until after I joined NU and retired, I was at the University of Wisconsin-Madison until actually 2017. Then I began at NU in 2016 upon Dan's kind invitation, Dean Pugh's kind invitation. But actually, I was also involved in setting up NU. And I think one of the things that's not a surprise for me is that NU is this fantastic magnet for faculty who are interested in the region, be it Kazakhstan, be it Russia, be it neighboring republics such as Tajikistan or Uzbekistan. And so right now we have about 35 to 40 faculty who are specialists on the region, in addition to being very well trained in a discipline. Now, so what happens in the US, is that you don't necessarily pursue the same program of study, the same courses, the same discipline as an undergraduate, and then at the master's, and then at a PhD. So in my own case, my undergraduate major was Middle East languages and cultures, and my graduate training was in history, and I worked in Turkic linguistics a lot as well. So you can, in the United States, if you go to law or medical school, first you do your undergraduate degree. You can do your undergraduate degree in physics and then study law. You can do your undergraduate major in German literature and then go to medical school, as long as you've completed the requirements. And so what happens when you go to graduate school in a 1 or 2 year master's program is that you're focusing on usually a discipline. Sometimes it's an interdisciplinary field. By the time you get to your graduate study, usually it would be in a discipline like literature, unless it's connected to a foreign language like Slavic language and literature. But even then, it would probably be literature or linguistics, or it might be history or political science or something like that. So the first thing is that in international academia, especially from the perspective of North America, there's the expectation that you will have strong training in a discipline. And I'll come back to that in a few minutes. What you also do is you do generally a minor. So the minor would be either a predetermined set of 3 or 4 courses in another discipline, or it might be interdisciplinary. And so, for example, you might do, let's say, a major in history at the level of the PhD, and you might do a number of courses, let's say in anthropology or some other field that is relevant for your area of study. And what happens then is that, so if you've done history as an undergraduate and as a master's and at the level of the PhD, it means you've gone very, very deep into history, hopefully. But it also means you're adding a small concentration of courses in a second discipline. The other possibility is that maybe you did linguistics, or you did Russian language, and then maybe you did Russian East European studies, and then let's say you enter a history program to the PhD. Even then, you may be adding another field. You may be repeating something like literature that you did and broadening it. But there is the concept that you have one field in which you're heavily trained, and a second one which will help you branch out. Let's say, you're studying like daily life, and having an anthropological perspective as a historian will help you. So this is deeply ingrained in the US and North American approach towards graduate education. It's not really reflected the same way in the European tradition. So quite often doing a PhD at a European institution, or in like the Anglo tradition, as in Australia or New Zealand, may mean that you go and you sign a piece of paper, you find somebody to supervise your work, and you have no additional training, and then you go and write your dissertation and present it or defend it. That's actually very different from the American model. And I think the American model that I'm familiar with is the best international model for graduate training, especially at the doctoral level. Following the Bologna process, the master's programs in Europe and in Kazakhstan are 2 years, and the PhD programs are 2 years additional of coursework and training, plus 2 years of research and writing. Whether that's enough is a different question. But so that's why our PhD program consists of 2 years of coursework and 2 years of research and writing. So what I'm saying is that that 2 years of training is very, very important. It's very important because it will include components of academic writing, which for non-native speakers of English can be very important. It will include training in discipline 1, which may be something you've studied before, it may be new to you, and training in discipline 2, which may also be something that is new for you. Now, why is a discipline important, and what do we mean by discipline? So let me just say that let's start with disciplinarity, and then let's go to interdisciplinarity. So I would say that difference, the two opposites are descriptive, and the other is kind of theoretical or discipline-based. If you are describing a house and you don't have any kind of method for doing that, are you going to say that it's big? Are you going to say that it has certain dimensions? Are you going to say that it has a certain number of rooms? You don't know. You don't know. Or if you're describing a work of literature and you have no idea about literary theory, are you going to be able to talk about it as reflecting post-colonial ideas, whether it is surreal or utopian, or whether it is something else? You know, what discipline gives you is, first of all, tools which have been developed for conceptualizing. You're not the first person who's conceptualizing something. You're drawing upon a long tradition of other people thinking about these things. So let's say in the case of post-colonial theory, that's something that I'm talking about in my literature class this week. People have, Edward Said and people before them have talked about how post-colonial literatures have certain features that, for example, you have, the colonizing power has come, it has represented the local people in a certain way. Later, the local people internalize this and so on. And there are certain ways of later admiring the colonizer. This becomes internalized and so on. People feel that their own culture is inferior or backwards. The colonizer looks at the local subjects as dark or dangerous or threatening, unable to govern the theory. Theory is what enables you to look at a work of, in this case, literature, and say, I can examine something like this, be it from North Africa or the Caribbean or Native American literature or Middle Eastern literature or Central Asian literature or literature somewhere else, Indonesia, and see some of the same phenomena because it's reflected in this body of theory. So what it does is it gives you ways for sifting data, for selecting data, because what you're doing as a graduate student is you are collecting data. But what do you do with all that data? It's like certain data are important for certain reasons. Other data aren't relevant to your argument and they don't need to be included. Let me talk about my own work a little bit too, just so that you get another view of what's important in terms of disciplinarity and also in terms of interdisciplinarity. And then what I'll do is in probably the final 10 minutes, I'll turn to an overview of the PhD program. So one of the things Dan didn't mention is that for about 35 years, I've actually been working on the history of epidemics in Eurasia. Notably the Black Death or bubonic plague, in Kazakh is oba, in Russian it's bubonная chuma. I started working on the 14th century because my doctoral dissertation had to do with tribal politics and social organization in the Golden Horde in the 13th and 14th centuries. And once I understood that there were some people who suggested that the Black Death, the epidemic of the 14th century, was responsible for the collapse of the Mongol world empire, suddenly I started studying that, and I realized that, oh my God, there's lots of data. So if you say, let's say in terms of theory, you have, I'll stop sharing my screen for a minute just so you can see my face. So if you have a theory that says, okay, disease, a pandemic can lead to collapse of states. It can lead to sudden depopulation. It can lead to disruption of culture and technology. It can have economic impacts such as inflation or insufficient labor, so harvests go uncollected. It has increasing religiosity. What it does is it gives you the power and the tool to look for evidence for something like this. And indeed, I've spent a lot of the last 35 years exploring ways to document demographic collapse. I think I've done that. I mean, first of all, I've collected various sources talking about disease, but so many people die so quickly from that kind of pandemic, unlike COVID-19, that, you know, historians, they die, they don't have a chance to write about it. Some others, like the Egyptian author Makrizi, does have a chance to write about it. And, you know, people have done important studies based on it. So you see, oh, there's funny currency reforms. Oh, you have new religious works that are being written. Why do you have a religious work in the Golden Horde called Nehjul Paradis or Ushmaklarnu Achupiolo, so the clear path to heaven? Why? Because people are afraid that they're being punished by God and that they're trying to become better Muslims. Okay, and this again and again and again. I can talk about that for hours and hours and hours. In fact, I've given quite a few talks on that this year. But I have to say, that's what discipline gives you. That a theory will tell you what is important data and what is not important data. Okay, and so this is why discipline is important. Having a second discipline and having this mantra of interdisciplinarity is important for other reasons too. And I'll give you know, an example of something that I'm trying to accomplish at this university. So already when you think about let's say studying the history of pandemics, you know, it gets into a lot of things. It can have the biological aspects to it, genetic aspects to it. It could, you know, climate change and how it's related to the spread of disease, all kinds of things like that. So let's say that it's one thing to be a historian or a linguist and to look at the fate of a society or the fate of languages. It's another to try to say, okay, what would a biologist say about this? Or what would somebody who studies the change in climate say about this? How can you go beyond the blinders you sometimes have with a discipline to do amazing things? And we've entered a new age where interdisciplinarity has even taken on new meanings. I'll give the one example I'm going to talk about is this new concept, especially over the last 10 years, for the study of the science of human history. I'm not a scientist. My brother is a scientist, but I'm not. And so one of the things we see in Germany, you have a Max Planck Institute for the study of the science of human history. So what do they focus on? It's led by a geneticist, and they study ancient DNA, and they're looking at how human populations are related to one another through genetic research, through ancient DNA analysis. They are interested in how plants evolved. They're interested in how animals evolved, the domestication of animals. Not far from Nur Sultan is the settlement of Botai, where they have studied the history of the horse and how many, actually now they say based on genetic evidence that the horse has been domesticated twice, except that the one that was in Botai was not the one that became dominant today. That's more related to the Przewalski horse, which is a very odd kind of horse. They study the history of diseases. So I study bubonic plague now based upon genetic data. They can and study of modern antibodies and study of samples they found in archaeological sites. You know, it's the earliest example for bubonic plague is based on the bacteria Yersinia pestis is from 4,900 years before present. And so now similar parallel to arguments I make for the 6th to 8th century, and because I've worked on that earlier plague too by now, on the 14th century, and also in the 19th century there was plague in Kazakhstan, and Mirjak Abdullatov even wrote about it. So people are saying, oh my God, there were epidemics or pandemics even 5,000 years ago that could have led to the collapse of Bronze Age societies. And so in order to be able to make these kinds of arguments, you have historians, you have archaeologists, you have geneticists and others. And so this is exciting. It's a new way to look at the world. And I'm not saying that's what you're going to do your dissertation on, but in order for you to take that first step, what you need to do is to make sure you've got at least good training in one discipline and try to make sure that you have good training in a second discipline as well. Because I think people have understood that if you just have historians talking to historians and you just have linguists talking to linguists, that the conversation may get old or boring or predictable after a while, but people have started having conferences where they force linguists to talk to archaeologists, and they force geneticists to talk to historians or linguists or biologists, and they're trying to have new conversations across disciplines. And I think what is amazing at NU is that we're trying to become a part of that conversation. So I'll stop there in terms of talking about disciplinarity and interdisciplinarity. I can talk about it for hours, but let me introduce the PhD program and make sure that we have about 20 minutes or 25 minutes to consider the requirements and answer your question. So again, I'm sorry, rather than trying to eliminate all of the sound on this, I'm just going to do it not in presentation mode. So, okay, so we do have a very deep faculty in Eurasian studies, as Dan said. I think what I'll do is I'll go ahead to the description. So we have a brochure, and you'll be able to learn more about the program from there. But it's important to note that this is the first interdisciplinary doctoral program in the humanities and social sciences in Central Asia. That the first two cohorts, and so already the first two cohorts are studying here, but they had received some additional support from the Volkswagen Stiftung in collaboration with Humboldt University. Because of COVID-19, we haven't been able to spend all of those funds, so we're hoping that some of these funds can help the third cohort as well. So all accepted students, Kazakhstani and international, receive a monthly stipend. And so far we've had some funds available for academic mobility, but actually right now, academic mobility is not something that is possible until the end of the academic year. But we're hoping, I would say, as somebody who reads up a lot about epidemics and pandemics and follows the news, I would say that probably by the middle of next year, certain countries will start having large-scale access to vaccines. And I think once we have large-scale access to vaccines, our world will start going back to normal. So I'd like to introduce what the program is about. We see that the first semester is rather structured. You take only one elective course in a discipline. So there's the introduction to Eurasia. So Eurasian Studies 700, critical issues in Eurasian studies. There is an academic writing course, from genre to style and back, writing for PhD students. So far, the PhD students in the first 2 years have reported back to me that they really learned a lot from that course. Plus, you take your first course in one of your disciplines. In the second semester, there's a pro seminar, which is kind of a general introduction to a field or a body of theory. I teach one on Eurasian history, readings of important classic and recent works. We've had them in social sciences and in other fields as well. I hope we introduce more of them. Since the program is rather new at the level of the PhD, we're still working on building new courses. In the second semester, you also take a second course in one discipline, and you take a first course in a second discipline. In the end, so just in case you're trying to count, I'll save you the struggle. So basically, we require 3 courses in one discipline, 2 courses in a second discipline, and you have 3 elective courses, so that your program is not only about whether you've taken courses in 1 or 2 disciplines. So that's the open elective. The next year, the whole year, you take the doctoral seminar in Eurasian Studies. Right now, I'm teaching that, and probably I'll be teaching it for a few years. And that is to make sure that in your third semester of coursework, that you have beginning to write up an outline and a full draft of your research proposal. You may know already that when you apply to the PhD program in Eurasian Studies, we do ask you for a sample research proposal. We ask you for a statement, and we also ask you for a writing sample. But I would like to emphasize that we do not insist that you do a dissertation on the topic that you said you wanted to do a dissertation on. What that is for us to see that you understand what a problem is and you know how to go about presenting it and making a realistic plan. And so, as I like to say, God forbid that you should learn something during your 2 years. And I would say that one of the master students who also took the course that I taught last spring is generally interested in history of medicine, but in my course, he read about he saw something about leprosy in Central Asia. So in Kazakh, that's alapes. And he got really fascinated in that topic. And now he wants to pursue doctoral studies in the United States, working on history of medicine in Central Asia, but he really wants to work on leprosy. So, you can be exposed to something in your course and then decide that this is a life-changing moment for you. So in that third semester, so in the fall of your second year, you take a second course in one of your disciplines, and you take a third course in one of those disciplines, and you have an elective course. I mean, we can count these a little bit differently, but this is a sample program. And finally, in your fourth semester, you continue with the doctoral seminar in Eurasian Studies, which means we're meeting every week and you're finalizing your research proposal. You have an open elective course. You're also allotted time for preparation for your qualifying exam, and roughly April of your fourth semester, in the spring, middle of the spring semester, you take your qualifying exam, which will consist of 2 examiners from NU, one for discipline 1, one for discipline 2, and it'll also include an external examiner, potentially from Humboldt University, potentially from somewhere else in the world. And then in May of your fourth semester, you have an oral exam, viva voce defense of your exam, of your dissertation proposal. And years 3 and 4, you're writing your dissertation, you're researching and writing your dissertation. Now, just a couple of words about the areas of expertise represented on our faculty, and I realize that I should finish up in 1 to 5 minutes. So we do have scholars interested in history of Eurasia, in religions of Eurasia, in archaeology of Eurasia, in languages and literatures, in Russophone literature, and in linguistics and language contact. And on the social science side, we have anthropologists, political scientists, sociologists. We do have some economists who work on the region, but this is really not considered to be like a program where you will enter and do a PhD in economics. That's really not the purpose of this PhD program. And we do have faculty also in the Graduate School of Public Policy from whom some of our students have taken courses. So let's see now. So another thing is we have the opportunity for some interdisciplinary fields. This is something that we're discussing, but we have religious studies included in the name of one of our departments, and we have Turkic studies included in the name of one of our departments. So we also consider those as options for the second field. And so I would say that if you examine the schedule of courses, I'm not quite sure what you have access to if you're not enrolled as a student, but if you have access to a list of courses, you might say, hey, how come you are offering a PhD at the 700, you're offering a PhD, yet you have hardly any courses at the 700 level or 600 level in the Graduate School of Public Policy. How is it possible that you can do that? And so I just wanted to point out that if you do see a list of courses, the way we're handling it in the case of many of the courses, there's one course in anthropology, one course in sociology, one course in linguistics that have 700 level numbers, but not all of our departments do that. So what we do is you enroll in one of the courses in, be it history or literature, either by signing up as an elective or an elective in Eurasian social science, or you may sign up for it as a pro seminar in Eurasian humanities or Eurasian social science. And in some cases, students have signed up for independent study courses as well. So what that is it's a device for registration, so that, we have quite a number of courses offered at the master's level, and as PhD students, you may take them with somewhat modified requirements appropriate to the level of study. So I think that's pretty much what I wanted to say. So I'd like to thank you for your attention, and I'm happy to answer questions. I hope that the presentation gave you some ideas about disciplinarity and interdisciplinarity. I hope it gave you some ideas about how one can do really, really exciting work in Eurasian studies, and how this actually, at NU, what you can do is participate in like leading edge scholarship that is being conducted internationally. And that scholarship, not just on Central Asia specifically or Kazakhstan specifically, but it's something that spans from the Atlantic Ocean to the Pacific Ocean in terms of the kinds of work people are doing now in terms of studying societies, the history of human populations, and everything in between.